Hello students, welcome back to Chemistry Online class brought to you by ighota Virtual Learning Platform. I am Olabisi Olawoye, and today we'll be considering another topic which is under characteristics of and nature of solids and liquids. This topic has been carefully selected from WAEC syllabus, and at the end of the class, questions will be treated which correlates with the topic being treated. So the topic is melting point as a determinant of purity of a solid, and at the end of the class, you should be able to describe why melting point determines the purity of solids. Now, in the first video made on the characteristics and nature of matter, we treated more of liquids, and liquids, they have boiling point, and if a liquid is not pure, it means the liquid will have a high and unusually high boiling point. It will not boil easily because there's a presence of an impurity. Impurity can be regarded as other elements or other compounds present in them. It is not necessarily sound or any other impure substance. It can be other foreign compounds present in them that doesn't make that compound or molecule purely its own form. So when we have such kind of mixture, we call them impure substance. So impurity arises when we have other substances present in a compound. So melting point is a very useful property of solids, including solids like benzoic acid, oxalic acid, which is also known as ethane dioic acid, and ethanamide, which is also known as acetamide. And these are organic compounds that are expected to be pure. They are solids, and their melting point will reduce drastically anytime there is a presence of another compound in them. For instance, now we have benzoic acid, and we're expecting the atoms of benzoic acid alone in the benzoic acid. But if it contains other compounds like sulfur, like chlorine in it, then this will affect its melting point because they have a specific melting point. But when there is a presence of other impurity, it affects their melting point. So what would be the effect of impurity on melting point? A sharp, narrow melting point range suggests a pure substance, while a low, wide range of melting points indicates the presence of impurity. For instance, in benzoic acid, the melting point is 122 degrees Celsius, and benzoic acid can be used as a calibration standard for melting point instruments, and it is used in identifying and assessing purity of solid crystalline substance. So you can imagine when a compound is being used to identify and assess purity of solid crystalline substance, it means itself must be in a very pure state, and it has a boiling point of 122 degrees Celsius. But anytime an impurity is present, the melting point will reduce. So the presence of an impurity reduces the melting point. That is, a very low temperature will be required to melt the compound. So the compound will melt easily without stress. But if it is a very pure substance and is made up of only atoms of benzoic acid, the melting point is raised, is high as usual. And another one is oxalic acid. Oxalic acid, which is also known as ethane dioic acid, has a melting point of 101, which is also high. Like the melting point of water, the boiling point of water itself is 100 degrees Celsius, which is a liquid. But in this case, we are treating a topic. The melting point is 101 degrees Celsius. So whenever there's an impurity, the melting point will drop. It will reduce the compound. With the oxalic acid solid will melt easily. And the last illustration here is on ethanamide, which is also known as acetamide. is also an organic compound. When it is in pure form, that is a very pure form, the melting point is 82 degrees Celsius. But when there is a presence of impurity or other substances in it, the melting point changes drastically and it reduces. So in a nutshell, anytime there is a presence of an impurity in a solid, it reduces the melting point of that solid. And if it is in a liquid, if there's an impurity in a liquid, we use boiling point for liquids. If there's an impurity in liquids, then the melting point of that liquid will increase drastically to not boil easily. And that leads us to the end of the class, and we are treating a revision question here. Majorly, most questions that is asked on this unit is just few, and I want to check this on your own, after which I answer it later. So let's move on. The purity of the solid sample can best be determined by A, boiling point, B, melting point, C, conductivity, and D, solubility. The best answer here is the melting point. The purity of a solid can be determined by its melting point. We find that this question is being repeated from year to year. And also, what is the effect of impurity on a solid? The effect of impurity on a solid is the melting point drops drastically. Thank you.